trade deal?
Well, yeah, I think generally there's a lot of hope that this is going to turn around what has been a couple of bad years for U.S. agriculture. The tariffs hit agriculture very hard, and with the promise that will, China has been the #1 trading partner in agriculture with the U.S., and I think the hopes is they'll regain that status and that they'll ship a lot more goods to China.
And it's certainly a difficult position because agriculture by its nature requires years of forward planning. So, I mean, sometimes years, as we mentioned. So what do these ongoing tariffs mean in terms of strategies as to how they proceed with this?
Well, no, you raise a great point. You're absolutely right. The tariffs prevent commercial buyers from just going to the U.S. and saying, okay, we'll buy some goods. And even the complications with this trade agreement is that we don't know what's going to be bought. And I think it's a concern of mine just in the sense that in the next couple of months, U.S. producers are going to be making planning decisions, and they'd like to know, where those markets are going to be and what's going to emerge from this agreement.
And so do we have any sort of estimates in terms of the long-term impact that these tariffs might have? Obviously, we may not see the fruits of that for years.
Yeah, no, I think as long as the tariffs remain on the books, that's going to be a problem. I think that it's all well and good to have promises to buy quantities, but really you want commercial buyers in there. You don't want state-owned enterprises doing all the buying, because if that ends up in storage, it's not real. I mean, it will be, don't get me wrong, producers will be glad to sell to anyone, but I think for long-run sustainability of a growing market, you want private commercial entities involved, and that means getting rid of the tariffs.
Now, something that did provide some relief, at least for some of the bigger farmers, was this aid package that the White House put together. We saw that U.S. Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue said on Monday that there's no need for a third year of trade-related aid for farmers. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think the real issue is whether there will be a third year. It's an election year. I mean, you very well could see another payment go out. But this has been a massive amount of money that's been provided by the U.S. government to farmers, and it certainly has helped farmers. It takes away a lot of the pain of missing markets. But you talk to a lot of farmers, they really want to be able to sell their goods. They don't want, they'd rather not see low prices. They'd rather not get a check from the government, rather get that money from the market.
And so for the estimated $16 billion in aid, has that been enough then to offset the losses that they've had to incur during this?
It depends, and it's not perfect, obviously. There's going to be some producers who have been hurt more than that. I think the real concern is long-term and what happens to markets. Do people look at the U.S. as less than a reliable supplier? I mean, these are all big concerns I think that a lot of farmers are concerned about.
So for people who are wondering, will it be business as usual once the trade war does get resolved, given some of the disruptions that we've already seen to the global supply chain?
Yeah, I think, a number of uncertainties. One, of course, is African swine fever. What's that done to the hog population in China? I think a lot of analysts, including myself, would say that protein demand, that is demand for things like soybeans, is less than what we might have thought 2 years ago. And so the smoke clears from the trade war, but you still have a reduced demand, I think, out of China. So we'll see where those extra exports come from, but clearly there's a need for pork. There's a lot of need for other products as well. So
then with the reduced demand and potentially with phase 2 still up in the air, now talks of a 2A, perhaps some tariffs getting removed, what does this mean for the U.S. agriculture sector and also for consumers?
Well, I think for the next year we'll see, I think, some hope that these markets return, that we'll see a little higher prices in the world. Right now, of course, we haven't seen much in terms of the commodity markets. They haven't really reflected much because I think people are looking, saying, well, okay, well, is this really going to materialize? And so for what products? And the markets had already built in a little bit expectations to have those higher prices. So we'll see. I think long-term, though, is getting China and the U.S. back on a more normal trade path and trading relations.